Another Trump political prosecution is circling the drain. We're talking today about James Comey's prosecution and how it's looking like his defense team is mounting a great defense and how the prosecution doesn't seem to have anything on him. And we're going to talk about what the odds are there and the steps that we see his defense preparing to take. We're also going to just talk about the Department of Justice in general and how the Trump administration has kind of decimated the whole department and how this might actually come back to bite them in the ass. Brian, where do we start with this?
Well, I think we should start on October 8th, which is the date that Comey appeared for his plea. So in the criminal process, and I feel like Law and Order, in the criminal justice system, in the criminal process, the first thing that happens is after there's an indictment or an arrest, there's an opportunity for a plea. So the plea came in. So here's what happened at this plea hearing. First of all, the lawyer for James Comey, who's extremely well-respected lawyer and been around as a prosecutor for a number of years, he says he plans to file two primary motions. Now, there's subsets to each of these motions. So let's start, Shant, if that's okay, with these two motions. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good place to start on this issue. One of them is that the prosecutor who brought the indictment, who's bringing these charges, Lindsay Halligan, who we've covered a couple of weeks back, was her appointment in that role is unlawful. And therefore, the charges she's brought have no merit. And therefore, it's just sort of there's like a procedural defect here.
Right. So let's talk about why it's an unlawful appointment. She's not the first person that was appointed by Trump to be the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Lindsay Halligan has, and we've covered this in another episode, she has no experience as a prosecutor, but that's not the reason. She was a civil litigator. She's never prosecuted a case in her life. She's one of Trump's personal lawyers. She sort of fits the mold for someone that Trump would put in here. But the problem is that the law allows the president to appoint somebody for 120 days. And at the end of the 120 days, the United States attorney for that district has to be confirmed by the Senate, or the judges of that district can appoint someone as the acting U.S. attorney. And here, what happened is there was originally an acting U.S. attorney who resigned or was fired. That's a good question about which happened, because he refused to prosecute Comey. And right. The 120 days had expired. So what's supposed to happen at the end of the 120 days if the Senate hasn't confirmed someone for that position?
Well, that person's done. And the judges get to vote on somebody else to replace them.
Right. And this is kind of nuanced.
A lawyer from that district. Yeah.
Right. This is kind of nuanced here. So what it is it's not like the interpretation of the law isn't that the president keeps getting 120 days. He could appoint Bob for 120 days, and then he could appoint Sue for 120 days, and then he could appoint Tony for 120. The interpretation is that's not the law. The law is you don't keep getting a mulligan. You don't keep getting an opportunity. But that's Trump's
end run around the law.
Right.
And the administration doesn't seem to care that much about the law. So they did this anyway. And they're really rolling the dice here. I mean, look, aside from this Lindsay Halligan person not being very qualified, and we dive deep into that, no prosecutorial experience at all. The problem is all the cases she's bringing that are being brought in that district under her leadership may get thrown out simply because she's appointed unlawfully.
Right, and she was specifically involved in this indictment. So if this indictment...
she handled the grand jury hearing herself, which is, might not sound that shocking because, well, she's the one that... No, but they don't do that. That's like, I don't know, that's like someone at a super high level going and doing something themselves. That's like, I don't know, the president of the United States conducting some hearing himself.
That's like Jeff Bezos delivering your package personally.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, seriously, he oversees 300 lawyers and countless staff people in that office. She's the highest law enforcement officer in that district in Virginia. And Erik Siebert, who was her predecessor, was gone. So if the indictment goes away, the statute of limitations is gone. It's blown.
That's another fun bit of this, right? Because they brought these charges almost at the very end of the statute of limitations. And in fact, Trump even kind of noted that or alluded to that in that message he posted on, I think, on Truth Social, where it appears to have tried to be a private message to Pam Bondi, because it says, "Dear Pam Bondi," and it just goes on this rant about we're running out of time.
Well, that's a good.
Sure as shit, we're running out of time.
That's a good pivot, Sean, because that really goes to the second major motion, and there's kind of subparts of the motion that that Mr. Fitzgerald, his lawyer, Jim Comey's lawyer, plans to bring, and that's a motion for malicious selective prosecution, vindictive prosecution, saying that the entire case is a retribution campaign by the president, that it's illegal. There's what's called outrageous government conduct. And that's the next motion. I think that motion may be a winner.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a very powerful motion. And I think there's pretty good evidence that this is a political prosecution or political persecution, and that there isn't evidence here. And that's supported. That argument is already, I think, strong enough. But it's also supported by the fact that the prior U.S. attorney in this district didn't want to bring these charges, and others
and prosecutors were fired for not bringing these charges. Right. So people said there is no there. And I want to talk about that substantively. Before I get to that, a little side footnote for you, which is apparently they wanted to do what's called a perp walk, where they take the criminal defendant who's been charged but not convicted in handcuffs, and they walk him past the cameras. And an FBI agent who was instructed to do that refused, and he's now been suspended.
Right. That's more evidence in favor of this malicious prosecution or vindictive prosecution motion that they plan to bring. Look, the fact that I think the most powerful thing, not to jump back too far, but the most powerful thing is that other prosecutors didn't want to do this. They didn't feel like there's enough evidence there. And look, we evaluate cases all the time. People pitch us cases, and one of the red flags we often see, not always, but something that's sometimes a red flag is when other lawyers have looked at a case and passed on it. Sometimes it's because they weren't up for the challenge, and we take it on and we take the risk. But sometimes it's also because there wasn't much there. There's no merit, and that's a red flag. We look at things carefully when other lawyers have looked at a case and passed on it. And that's the equivalent here. There's the criminal equivalent of that. So other prosecutors looked at it.
That's really borne out, Shant, by the fact that shockingly, so the judge said in hearing in early December on these motions and set a trial for January 5th, 2026. Shockingly, the prosecution got up and said, "That's not enough time, Your Honor. We need more time. We need more time," which proves the point. And one of the things that the defense has said, one of the things that Mr. Comey's lawyer has said, is that the day before is only the first time he got any information about this case. There are people mentioned in the indictment as person number 3 and person number 1. We don't know who they are. The government hasn't released who these individuals are. And they haven't been told precisely about count 1 and count 2, these perjury and obstruction of justice claims, what the facts are. Because they're not in the indictment. It's no specific statement. We've talked before about what we think they are, but they don't even have the specifics, which is, rather shocking. In my understanding,
this is political theater. That's what I think. That's of course.
So the day before, Sean, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States of America, who apparently is just seething with huge amounts of integrity, which she's angry has been challenged. She was asked numerous questions by some of the Democratic senators about this Comey prosecution, and you know how she responded?
She was very forthcoming about it. She was very transparent and shared everything about the Comey prosecution, right? Is that what happened?
Right. If by that you mean she says, "I'm not going to discuss any conversations I've had with the president. I'm not going to discuss the case. I'm not going," and then telling Adam Schiff that if he worked for her, he would have been fired. That's one of the things she said. And also when asked about it, she defended the Department of Justice focus on violent crime. So that was her response to questions about the James Comey prosecution.
Very informative.
Right. Specific questions about whether or not the president directed her to bring these charges. Okay, so I thought it would be kind of fun in the last couple minutes here because Dick Durbin brought this up during he's the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, meaning he's the highest ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. He brought up over and over again number of departures from the Department of Justice since she took over. So approximately 2,100 Department of Justice employees have been fired, resigned, or left as of July. That's as of July. That doesn't even count the people who were fired over this specific case. Mostly, like a lot of them from the Civil Rights Division, which has been decimated. They've had 75% of the lawyers from the Civil Rights Division removed, which I guess is fine when you no longer intend to enforce civil rights litigation.
Right, when civil rights aren't a thing, why do you need lawyers to enforce them? Yep.
Only better by the public integrity section, which is the group of lawyers that go after corrupt public officials. They had 30 prosecutors on January 20th, and now they have 2.
Yeah, so it just decimated the DOJ. I mean,
they also have fired 100 immigration judges, which I guess makes sense when you no longer intend to give people due process. So why do you need judges? 100. 275 positions in the Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force have been eliminated. This is by the Attorney General of the United States, who said we're refocusing on violent crime. Okay. Let's see, 37 people that were involved in Jack Smith's investigation team involving January 6th have been fired. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but multiple people in the Office of Professional Responsibility, the Ethics Department, which is good because Pam Bondi doesn't have any ethics. So why would you need anybody in the Ethics Department? Right?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is, I think, not to be overly dramatic about it, but this is like step one. Doing this to the Department of Justice, to the lawyers that enforce the law and ethics and civil rights. That's step one to, like, you know, trying to give the president just unlimited power to do whatever he wants and use the DOJ as a tool, basically, as a weapon. So,
right. I mean, you know, for a group of people who say they want to stop the weaponization of the FBI and the Department of Justice, they've done a pretty good job of weaponizing the Department of Justice and the FBI, haven't they?
Yeah, you know what else is telling? That most of these roles haven't been filled. They're having trouble replacing the folks that were in these roles.
Well, in some of them, like civil rights and public integrity, they have no intention of filling the roles, Sean. I don't think they're ever going to fill them. Yeah. They disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force, which when they were going after Hunter Biden, Foreign Influence Task Force was incredibly important to them. But now today they've disbanded it. They disbanded the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team. Let's just stop there and let you comment on that one. I'm going to give that one to you. Why do you think they got rid of the cryptocurrency enforcement team?
You mean the team that would probably prosecute someone like the Trump organization for their stupid meme coin that they released? I mean, they want unfettered access to this stuff. They don't want to get caught in their grift. All of these things have to do with, you know, giving them carte blanche to just grift the American citizens and do whatever they want. Less regulation, right? I mean, that's their goal here, and they're getting it. They're working towards unchecked power, and that's pretty dangerous. And look, it may come back and blow up in their face. I keep saying this because when the political pendulum swings the other way, when it's not an all Republican controlled Congress, what's going to happen? Or what's going to happen when Republican Congress people turn against the president at some point? You know, this can blow up in their face. You know, he's going to be the ultimate target.
My last word on this is the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. I agree. I got nothing more to add than that. I got nothing smarter to say than that. Well, I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This has been Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. If you like this content, remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you want to keep up with us, you can follow us on our own social media channels. You can share your comments. Feel free to share this video with whoever you think might find it informative or entertaining, even though Brian's not that entertaining. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.